Perfect. We can actually start recording because I don't know, for some reason my screen goes like black, so don't mind if I disappear. But yeah, so David, like pretty much, and I know like we are just ahead of time, but I just want to pretty much bring this conversation to the table and the topics. Like we are here to discuss the critical updates and implication of BS 553, which came into effect yesterday, July 1st.
That's correct.
Yeah, as we know, these new standards is set to reshape our industry for everyone to feel safer in the workplace. Yet, recent surveys reveal that 70% of the companies don't feel ready or fully compliant. So today, I really want us to explore this new regulation, this new law, the challenge businesses are facing, and practical steps we can make to ensure organizations they meet the requirements, because we know the fines. Who wants to pay a fine? Seriously, no one budgets to pay fines.
Of
So
course.
and to be honest, it's a new law. It's not. I don't know. Like I put myself into the shoes of companies, and I just feel like, how can I know that I'm doing the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when people obviously see a new law, it's like, oh, it's going to be very onerous, going to be very costly to implement these changes. But I think, we're going to present some tips and tricks on this webinar, obviously discuss what the bill is, and then present some concrete ideas, things that employers can do to be compliant with the law. So it's actually not as, onerous as it may sound. Many of the things like record keeping or, establishing a method for employees to report incidents. I mean, they could be as simple as creating a spreadsheet or establishing a web page or a hotline or something to report these incidents. And then there are templates available as well to help businesses create their workplace violence prevention programs. So we're going to be sharing that on the webinar as well.
That is amazing. And I think it's going to be really interesting for everyone as well to participate. So for all the attendees, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will address those ones live or personally. We might send you an email if we don't have the time actually to go through all the questions. But I'm very respectful of everyone's time. We said we are going to start sharp at, well, for me it's 6 p.m., but for you, David, what time is it for you?
10 a.m. in California.
Oh, you see, so let's start. So all yours, please. Just as a very quick introduction, well, you are David Liu. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, yes, my name is David Liu. I'm the head of sales at Acre Security for the TDS Enterprise Visitor Management Solution, and very happy to be here today to talk about SB 553 for the state of California.
Yeah, thank you very much. And my name is Andrea McCabe. I am part of the marketing team. I'm going to be here moderating your questions and pretty much letting you enjoy this as much as you can. And let me just start with the introduction again. So today we are going to discuss BS 553, which we know it's a new regulation that came in place yesterday, 1st of July. We have the topic that 70% of companies, they don't really feel ready or fully compliant. So our main mission for you is for you to leave with after this webinar with more knowledge, with more clarity about what do you need to do, and the first steps for you to make sure that your company is compliant. So please, David, all yours.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Andrea. Let me share a little PowerPoint deck. Give me 1 second to bring it up on screen. Share screen. And here we go. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So again, I want to welcome everybody to this webinar on SB 553, California Senate Bill 553, which is aimed at workplace violence prevention in California. So this is really one of the first bills of its kind in the United States. As Andrea said, there are a number of companies and workplaces who feel that they are, struggling or not yet ready to comply with this new regulation. We want to walk you through this in this webinar and see that it's actually not too onerous to be able to be compliant. And Acre Security can definitely help furnish many of the tools that can provide for a safer workplace overall. Now, it's interesting because according to the National Safety Council, there's some statistics out there. So in 2021 and 2022, there were over 57,000 injuries that occurred in the United States as a result of workplace violence. And in 2022, there were actually over 500 fatalities. So we believe any number is too large for this number, and that we all have a role to play in reducing workplace violence in all of our workplaces. So as Andrea said, as of July 1st, most California employers are expected to be compliant with SB 553. So that was yesterday. So if you're not compliant yet, we're going to take you through a little bit of this webinar and see how you can become compliant. So what is SB 553, California Senate Bill 553? The purpose of California Senate Bill 553 is to focus on workplace safety and the prevention of workplace violence. So unfortunately, this is still an occurrence in many of our workplaces. We want to drive that number down to zero. And it really is a milestone in labor law, that labor law legislation that mandates that employers create their own workplace violence prevention programs as part of their Cal-OSHA injury and illness prevention plans. Now, I've provided a link via the QR code. If anyone wants to read the actual text of the bill, they can scan the QR code. It links to the text of the bill. Now, the primary aim of this bill is to enhance workplace protections for employees against workplace violence, particularly in healthcare and social service settings, but also applicable to other industries as well. And according to data from OSHA, nearly 75% of workplace assaults reported annually occur in healthcare and social service settings. So actually, this bill is going to take many of the best practices and regulations and apply them to most employers within the state of California. Now that we know the background of SB 553, what are some of the key responsibilities for employers as well as employees to be compliant with this bill? Number one, really the cornerstone of the bill is to create and maintain a written violence prevention plan to prevent workplace violence. The employer must update the plan annually and after any incidents that occur. And the plan must be available to employees upon request. Next is providing employee training. So training employees and recognizing and responding to workplace violence is really a key point of this bill as well. And the employer must also ensure that the training covers reporting procedures and methods to seek help. Next is record keeping. So keeping detailed records of any workplace violence incidents that may occur, as well as making those records available to employees upon request. Next is incident reporting. So the employer must provide a system for employees to report incidents without retaliation, as well as promptly investigate and addressing all reports should an incident occur. Next is safety controls. So an employer must implement physical and administrative measures to reduce violence risks, and these can include barriers, surveillance, or for ACRE, access control, and visitor management. So that's for employers. Now, what about employees? For employees, number one is policy compliance. So it's really to follow the employer's violence prevention plan, which is documented and available upon request, and participate in the training that's offered by the employer. Number two is to report any incidents. So promptly reporting any violence or threats to the employer, as well as reporting any suspicions as well. I think in public spaces, many of us are used to this, right? Report what you see. And so again, all of us have a role to play in maintaining and increasing the security of our workplaces. Number three is investigation participation. So by cooperating with investigations and providing accurate information should an incident occur, we can help hopefully prevent further incidents in the future. Next is safety practices. So adhering to safety procedures and using provided safety measures effectively is very important for employees as well. And then communication, just communicating concerns about potential violence hazards and participate in safety discussions. So when in doubt, raise it, report it, make it known, don't hide, Don't keep it to yourself, because at the end of the day, you could really help to prevent an episode of workplace violence. Next, so following from that, what are some of the initial actions that companies can take to kickstart compliance with SB 553? Number one, as we mentioned, the first part is really developing that workplace violence prevention program and to create a written plan to identify the hazards and mitigation procedures. Now, I've actually included a QR code link from a sample template provided by Cal OSHA. So if you need a template, don't know where to start as far as workplace violence prevention program, I invite you to click on that link. It comes from an official source, and it discusses what are reporting procedures, risk assessments, response protocols, employee support strategies, and basically anything you would need to create this prevention plan.
David, so in that case, just to recap, so I don't have an idea where to start. I know that this law started yesterday. So my first step should be go and create a writing plan. And if I don't have idea how to do it, by going to that QR code, I will be able to get the template, correct?
Absolutely. And I think, well, I suppose there's one more step before that, is to determine who within the organization is going to be responsible for creating a plan. Most likely it would be maybe a team consisting of HR, compliance, training, security personnel, determining who that individual or individuals are. And then the template provides many, if not all, of the information and the steps you'll need to create that plan.
It's very interesting what you mentioned, because one of the questions that I have here is how this bill will impact my daily operations and workflow. And maybe the first impact is to understand who is going to be in charge, like the workflow of who is going to do who and what.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll discuss later in the webinar how, the technologies provided by Acre Security, such as visitor management and access control, can help. But as far as, the daily changes after implementing such a plan is actually not a lot, assuming that employees are being trained, assuming that, the reporting procedures and the logs are in place, day to day. Hopefully there's very few intrusions into the day-to-day activities, because hopefully we're not experiencing these sorts of incidents frequently. So I think on the security side, if you implement some of these technologies like access control and visitor management, they will definitely be part of the daily security procedures, say if you want to invite a visitor to your workplace. But from a compliance standpoint, many of the things in this plan actually are not too burdensome from a day-to-day operations standpoint.
Perfect, thank you. Let's move to step number 2 then.
Yeah, number 2. So as discussed, training programs. So by providing regular training and recognizing signs of violence, de-escalation, as well as reporting procedures, these can actually all be provided by HR training organizations. There's a California Employers Association that offers many webinars, many resources that people can go to, or I'm sure many of our listeners or employers out there maybe already have access to an HR training provider, and that content can be added into your training program. So this training must be conducted annually, and attendance must be documented. So if our listeners, our employees have already some sort of HR training program portal that they subscribe to or access, this can be added onto it quite easily. Next is incident reporting and investigation. So as we said in the previous slide, establishing a confidential, non-retaliatory reporting system is crucial for compliance. And this actually is quite simple. It can be very simple as a hotline, a number to call, or a web link, just a link that employees can go to report any incidents and or anything that they may want to report. And the employer should promptly investigate incidents, document findings, and take corrective actions. So the employer would need to identify the individual or individuals that would be in charge of this. Next, record keeping. So maintaining documentation and detailed records of all incidents, such as a logbook or spreadsheet. So again, doesn't have to be too onerous. Could be a spreadsheet, a logbook, a shared file, or some sort of software that keeps records of any incidents that may happen. And ensuring these records are accessible to employees as required. and can be accessed, after the fact in case any incidents do occur. And lastly, implementing environmental and administrative controls. So this is really within the realm of security protocols. So design the environment to implement physical changes like barriers and secure entry points, as well as access control system and visitor management system, and enabling administrative controls to enforce policies like scheduling adjustments and restricting access to reduce risks. Next, so what are some of the penalties for non-compliance? So employers failing to comply with SB 553 may face fines of anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000 per incident. And other potential penalties could include license revocation and increased exposure to employee litigation. So given the potential repercussions of non-compliance, it's imperative that employers proactively develop and implement their workplace violence prevention programs. So, other than the monetary fines, of course, which, as you said earlier, it's something that no one really budgets for, but there's also a lot of damage that can come from failing to comply with SB 553. And these can include loss of employee trust and morale, a negative workplace culture, erosion of company reputation, employee burnout and stress, recruitment challenges, customer and client distrust, community impact, as well as internal conflict. So we all want to be compliant. We all want to attract the best and the brightest and make sure that our employees are happy and safe in their workplace. So fortunately, visitor management and access control system are crucial components in enhancing workplace security and ensuring compliance with SB 553. These are the cornerstone technologies that Acre Security focuses on, and we believe we can definitely help provide with these technologies prevention of workplace violence and provide an overall more secure, more safe workplace. So let's take a look at how some of these technologies can help. Number one is visitor management. So an enterprise visitor management system, something that's very near and dear to my heart, of course. What does it provide an organization to help reduce workplace violence? So number one is tracking and documentation. So by having an enterprise visitor management system, an electronic record of a log of all visitors entering and exiting a premises, this can include timestamps, purpose of visit, and the person they are visiting. That way, a security staff, HR staff, whoever it may be, has a real-time view of any visitors that may be at a facility at any given time. This would also provide record keeping in the case of incidents, and the documentation can really be vital in the event of an incident, providing clear record of who is present at the facility at any given time.
Do you know what I think it's really relevant to mention here, David, that by having a system that tracks and documents everything, you have instant information, which is very different when you have everything in a document, an Excel file, on a document. Then you miss information, you are not up to date. So I think it's just really relevant just to have all the information up to date and with one click, just to be able to retrieve any information that you might need.
Yeah, you can go back and search by day, for example. If you know an incident happened on a specific day, boom, you go in and search. You can search all the records at a given time, who was there, who was led into the facility at any given time,
Yeah.
maybe even was escorting this visitor when they're in the facility.
Thank you.
So next, for visitor management, a very important piece actually is the visitor screening. So with a visitor management system, what would happen is an employer, a person working for a company, would usually send an invitation to a visitor to visit their facility. So these can include a pre-invite, but they can also include procedures to screen visitors before they even arrive at the facility. So these can include a background check, checks against the watch list. You can even do a ID verification, make sure the person is who they say they are before a person even arrives on site, and even check off any pre-registration requirements checking for things like country of citizenship, any documents you may need before a person even arrives on site at a facility. And with a visitor screening system, you also issue temporary ID badges to visitors. So whether that's a paper badge or an RFID plastic card badge, you can ensure that visitors are visible, they have that pin to their person, and even identify them with writing, say on the badge it says visitor, or even color-coded with like a lanyard or a clip of some sort. Next is emergency response. So Acre Security's visitor management systems actually provide capabilities to integrate for emergency response. So one use case is visitor accountability, quickly accounting for all visitors during an emergency and ensuring that everyone is safe and accounted for. So this can be done with our life safety module. And what that does is, in the case of an emergency, say a fire or an episode of workplace violence, if an emergency is triggered, the employer security staff will be able to get a real-time view of employees as well as visitors that are on site and direct them to, for example, muster at certain locations to make sure that everyone is safe and accounted for. Another part of it is notification systems. So automated systems can notify visitors of emergencies and guide them on correct actions to take. So Acre Visitor Management provides integration into leading emergency management systems, mass notification systems. So when an incident occurs, visitors on site as well as employees will be able to be notified on the best actions to take. Next, moving on to access control, which is really the core technology that Acre Security is founded upon. So what does an access control system do to help prevent workplace violence? So number one, of course, it provides controlled entry points. So by limiting access to sensitive or high-risk areas to authorized personnel only, this can help reduce the potential for workplace violence, not to mention increase the security of the facility and prevent episodes of both physical as well as corporate and IP theft. So this can be done through secure entry through the use of electronic key cards, biometric scanners, PIN codes, mobile credentials, any sorts of credentials to control who can enter specific parts of the building. Next is real-time monitoring. So leading access control systems, such as those offered by Acre Security, provide integration into leading video surveillance platforms. So by combining access control with video surveillance to monitor entry and exit points in real time, as well as historically, security staff are able to either go back or view in real time who is trying to access specific access points or doors at any given time, giving actual visual verification of a particular entry point. With an access control system, you can also set up immediate alerts. So setting up alerts for unauthorized access attempts can allow for quick intervention.
Okay, so let's say that, so quick example, let's say that I am a visitor, you authorize me to go to the second floor, but then I try to go to the third floor. Will you receive a notification that, hey, Andrea McCabe, your visitor, actually tried to enter the third floor, which is not allowed?
Yes, that can definitely be done. And then maybe you just made a mistake. Maybe you went to the third floor by accident, or hopefully that's the reason. Or, you know, there could be something more sinister, more nefarious, but something that would alert the security staff, hey, check this person out. Is it a mistake? What are they trying to do, right?
Perfect, thank you.
Great. So next is audit trails in terms of access control. So very similar to visitor management, that visitor management provides a log of visitors at your facility over time. So too does access control keep detailed logs of all access events, which card was trying to access which door. And these can be reviewed to identify and address any security breaches that may occur. And these logs also serve as a record for compliance audits, demonstrating that the company is actively managing and controlling access inside their facility. Finally, access control provides for overall employee safety and well-being. So by ensuring a secure work environment and controlling access, the workplace overall becomes safer and you reduce the risk of incidents of workplace violence, as well as theft and other types of security breaches. And for employees, they feel safer knowing that unauthorized individuals cannot easily access their workspace. So in conclusion, what are the steps to compliance for SB 553? Number one is to assess current safety measures and form a compliance task force, as we discussed earlier. Whoever is responsible within the organization, could be HR, could be compliance, could be security or compliance staff, and to really develop that workplace violence prevention plan. Engaging with employees and establishing a clear reporting system, making sure that they know where to report any incidents or suspected incidents before they occur or even after they occur. And to conduct regular training and updating safety protocols to make sure that everyone is aware and kept top of mind about what to happen in case an incident does occur, or to prevent incidents from happening in the first place. And again, Acre Security, we specialize in visitor management and access control technologies. So these can help enhance security through the tracking and documenting of visitors, screening, and controlling access to sensitive areas, as well as implementing real-time monitoring and maintaining detailed access logs. So we invite anyone who's interested in these technologies to please reach out to Acre Security. Your local sales team will be happy to assist and support you in any of your security endeavors. So that's it. That's the summary on SB 553. I hope this has been informative for all of our listeners. And we'll take any questions, and if there are any questions for the audience.
Thank you so much, David. I think this has been so helpful, especially this is a new topic. It's a new law, so I do understand that many of us, we are like, I'm doing things right. What do I need to do? But I do have some questions that the audience sent me in private. And then as well, we open a chat on LinkedIn, and I have a couple of questions for you. So if you are ready, I can start asking you.
Of course.
Perfect. So the first question, it is more about your personal opinion, and that is coming from me, which is, honestly, what do you think are the first barriers for companies to make sure they are following the right steps to be compliant?
Yeah, I think with any bill or any new law that comes in, there's the bill, there's what's reported in the media, the news, and then what do employers actually have to do, right? So, what are the translation between the actual bill text and what are the actual concrete steps that employers have to take? Because I did provide the link to the bill earlier, but those are very long and boring, and most of us don't read through the whole thing. They're certainly there if we need to. But as we mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of resources out there that can make compliance very easily. Number one, the QR code I provided earlier with the template workplace violence prevention program. It's only a couple pages, and it really provides the detailed kind of steps and pieces of what you would need to implement in that plan. So I think that's a very good template, again, provided by Cal OSHA, an official organization. So we didn't just make it ourselves. So provided by Cal OSHA, that covers the major points of the workplace violence prevention program. And then as far as, other parts such as training and whatnot, again, I think there's resources online. We can certainly provide some if anyone's interested, but some organizations I mentioned, such as the California Employers Association, or again, if any employers already subscribe to any sort of HR training for other compliances, such as, for example, sexual harassment or anti-corruption, all those sorts of things. I'm sure those organizations can provide content for training as well.
Thank you. Really, really interesting. And thank you actually to make sure and to provide, and I don't know, just to make sure that all of us, we know that there are resources available, for companies actually to go. So I have another question here, which is, are we required to have a violence incident log and report?
Yes, that is required as part of the law. So there should be a way to report, as well as a way to log incidents. And again, it doesn't have to be something extremely costly or onerous and spend thousands of dollars on a software package to be compliant. I'm sure those sorts of software packages have many bells and whistles, but it could be as simple, as I mentioned earlier, as for reporting. It could be a number, it could be an email address, it could be just a form created on a company's website or intranet or something like that to submit reports. And as far as incidents, again, it could be very simple. It could be some sort of electronic logbook. It could be an Excel spreadsheet if you want to make it very simple. Hopefully these incidents are not occurring with great frequency, but there should definitely be a way to log these incidents for record keeping.
Okay, thank you. I do have another question here about very similar, like the same, pretty much about the violence incident. And as I said, well, it's very important to clarify that if we don't really have the answer, we can always go back, okay, to the person, because all of us, we are learning about this topic. So is the incident log available for employees?
I believe so, yeah. So the workplace violence, the actual plan itself, yes, definitely has to be available to employees should they request it. And then the log, I believe, it needs to be accessible to employees if they ask for it as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, like, to be honest, I think totally we can do further investigation, but that is very, very interesting. Thank you. I have another question here that it is about if you know it's going to be constant, like, supervision from the government, if you know if it's going to be some regulation, supervision, like knocking the doors, like, okay, it's your time for your monthly supervision. Are you ready? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know the 100% answer to that. I'm guessing that, state of California is not going to send people knocking on door-to-door businesses asking, hey, let me see your plan. I don't think that's going to happen. Although I will say I'm not the expert on that. I don't envision that happening. Although at the same time, you have to be aware that if an incident does occur and it comes to light that there wasn't a violence prevention plan in place, then the employer could be liable for those fines that we discussed earlier, as well as those intangible factors as well.
Perfect. It's and they are asking us if you can actually go to the slide of the steps so they can actually take a photo of the QR code to download the template that you mentioned.
Of course. Give me a second here.
Thank you.
Let me share screen again. And let me make this bigger so that people can click on the QR code.
Yeah.
Oops. Yep, there you go. So it's just a Word file, multiple pages, but it does provide for a template for many of the steps that you need to do to create this plan.
Amazing. In terms of, I have another, like, thank you for sharing your screen, and I have another questions about if this new law, it's a new regulation, applies for all industries, any type of company, like medium-sized enterprise.
So off the top of my head, I believe it applies to companies more than 10 employees. There are certain industries that are exempted that have a lot of, for example, public traffic, like hospitals. I believe jails was one of them as well. But as far as most employers, it would be employers over 10, with over 10 employees, and most, for example, a company that we would usually envision somebody working in.
Thank you. Amazing. Well, David, I think we answered all the questions that we have live and the ones that were sent on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Is anything in specific that you wish for everyone takes away? Like, don't underestimate to keep your records on, to train your staff. What for you will be one of the key factors that no one should underestimate in this new regulation?
I mean, for employers who may be new to this is really to take a look comprehensively, at your policies and procedures and how, what you put in place, some of the resources, and especially from a security standpoint, how these security technologies can help, reduce not only reduce workplace violence, but also provide a generally safe and secure environment, right? From the security standpoint, we have, possibly episodes of, as I mentioned earlier, not only physical theft, but IP theft. Someone could come into your facility and take a picture or take documents, or even, one of the things is, accessing employees to, create ransomware or any sort of a cyber attacks if they have physical access to your facility. So not only are these security procedures important in terms of workplace violence prevention, but also very much from a corporate security standpoint as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. And for everyone, please feel free to reach out at hrsecurity.com. We are just happy to take all the questions that you have. And if you want to discover more about access control and visitor management, don't hesitate to reach out, that we are happy. Everyone is going to receive the recording of this webinar if you want to, rewatch again. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you, David, for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.